The doctrine of discovery is the current system of laws and policies that justify the removal of land from Indigenous peoples. These laws are rooted in church doctrines that originated in the 15th century.
Together, we will uncover this deep structure of colonization that systematically deprives Indigenous peoples of human rights.
I'm Sherry Hostetler, and I hope to start a coalition of Anabaptist people of faith that seek to dismantle the doctrine of discovery. I'm also a Mennonite pastor in San Francisco.
And I'm Sarah Augustine, and I also helped start this coalition. As an activist and scholar, I'm the descendant of the Tewa people and a displaced person. This is the Dismantling the Doctrine of Discovery podcast.
Today, Sarah and I are going to be commenting on a video from the Indigenous Speaker Series that the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery did recently. We're going to specifically be commenting on the video by Tela Troge. And obviously, in the show notes, I'll put links to this video and also the speaker series. So, Sarah, I know you got to know Tela and you interviewed Tela for this video.
Yes.
Can you say a bit about, the situation that where she's from and the situation that she's involved in and how the coalition is coming alongside that?
Sure. So the Shinnecock have lived on Shinnecock Bay since time immemorial. These are the first people of the land in this community in Long Island. And it's a community that, is captured in lots of parts of the collective imagination in the U.S. because it's in the Hamptons. So the Shinnecock are the first people of the Hamptons. This is in Long Island, New York. So the Shinnecock Bay has served as the source of food and security for Shinnecock relatives, supplying fish and clams and mussels and seaweed. But today, 99% of these foods are annihilated due to solid waste generated by the wealthiest Americans, who depend on failing septic systems to store their waste and refuse to create a solid waste treatment facility. And if you think that is shocking, that's not all. The economic development projects the Shinnecock have devised to care for their elders and children are likewise blocked by the town of Southampton. So they're perpetually in court as they're trying to provide a way to generate a livelihood. This tribe has continuously resided on their homelands throughout settler colonialism. They're still there. Some of the first people that were ever approached by colonists and supporting its people with resources from the Bay. Now their livelihood is not only endangered, but functionally eradicated. And so the situation of the Shinnecock is really a situation about land return, people who do not have control of their own lands and who need to have land return in order to pursue self-determination, which is what all communities want: self-determination, the ability to provide for themselves, and are in a situation of structural violence, which is defined as laws and policies that are in place that prevent a vulnerable population from being able to meet their own needs. So that's the context. Tela Troge is part of a women's collaborative that is working on raising kelp in the Shinnecock Bay in order to restore the life of the Bay, which is a multi-generational project. So that's some background and context.
Yeah, I'm also going to link to a Substack that you wrote about this and that I responded to, in which you get even more of the details of just the kind of horrible, I'm going to say shit show because it's literal, the horrible shit show that is happening there, where literally the fecal matter and the urine of these very wealthy people is going straight into the Bay. This bay that has been the source of livelihood for the Shinnecock people, as you've said. I'm just maybe underlining with my outrage. And And that I think Tila says in this video that 99 point something percent of the life of that bay has been kind of is gone
Hmm.
because of this. Of course, they've also got the other issue of climate change,
Hmm.
also, that's working against them being able to secure a livelihood from the bay, which they have done from practically time immemorial.
Hmm.
Um, but so that is like the horror of what they're up against. And yet, this video with Tila was just left me feeling so also hopeful and
Hmm.
just sort of I don't know if in awe is quite the word, but just really inspired
Hmm.
by Tila and this women's collaborative, and just the way she is thinking and embodying her resistance to this, but also her dedication to her people and to all of life, not just
Hmm.
life for her people, but life for everybody
Hmm.
who is affected by what's going on in that bay.
Hmm.
So she's she's amazing,
Hmm.
and your interview with her was just a really it's really worth seeing. Is it okay? So, Sarah, I was thinking I'd play a first clip from
Great.
this video and we could comment on it.
That'd be great. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah.
We very much believe in taking action. Um, we're not going to sit back and just like let things happen. And a large part of that is due to our belief in supporting the seven generations. And so when we talk about the next seven generations, we're talking about our children and their children and so on and so forth. But we're also talking about the prior generations and the lessons that they have taught us in how to work together and how to really vision for a future where we can enjoy the things that we have always enjoyed. And so that visioning for the future seven generations, I believe, is what strengthens our ability as a collective to take action against the devastation that we've been experiencing. And we work intergenerationally. It's really important to us. In our collective, the Shinnecock Kelp Farmers, we're led by an elder, Rebecca Genia, and she often tells us about her great great grandfather who was alive in the 1800s at the time that our land was taken. And, she shares all of the old ways with us, and we're constantly learning from the prior generations, which I think it has a lot of value. I don't think it's typical or normative in the larger society that you take so much value in what folks in the 1800s were doing, but to us it's absolutely essential to our survival. um and so it forms the basis of our memory because we're able to remember what it was like, and we're able to remember the abundance, and we're able to remember our ways of life, and we're able to then vision, what can we do, what actions can we take to ensure that the future seven generations will be able to enjoy all of that beauty and also move past all of the traumas that we've experienced.
Sarah, I had been saying to you before we started recording that what I was really struck by in that clip was the fact that what I heard is the seven generations goes both directions.
Hmm.
It reaches back into the past where there's still this connection to these prior generations who can remember what it was like, who can remember the abundance and remember our ways of life so that we could, as I think she said, so we can envision for our future how to enjoy all the things we've enjoyed. And I thought how, in our book that we wrote, you, in those some of those later chapters, really talk about imagination, how we need to imagine the world that is possible and then act for that world.
Hmm.
Um, and that there's this, I was just struck by how that sacred imagination for Tela is very much linked to this sacred memory, that is still so alive in that community. And how I think one of the things that colonial capitalism does is actually sever people from that memory.
Mm.
And so I just was feeling, I guess, so I don't know, I was feeling so struck by that, I guess, in that clip from Tila.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I guess I want to just begin by talking about um, erasure and sort of this culture of erasure that is prevalent in the United States and in a lot of places. I think what we now call the discovered world, where settler colonialism has taken place or taken root, which is this idea that whoever was the victor, or whoever has the power and the ability to back up their position with force, gets to determine what the narrative is. And the narrative, I think, that I understand growing up in the United States. So I guess I'm not saying this is what it is, but this is what I have gleaned from it, is that the United States began with the settlement of Europeans on the East Coast. And the thing that I find to be so interesting about that is it doesn't even include the settlement of the Southwest, or the Southeast, even from Florida all the way to California, that it was established by the Spanish. So that those are also colonists from Europe, but that's not really where the narrative begins. The narrative begins with the settlement of the East Coast by Northern Europeans, and that's the story of the United States. And anything that came before that is erased. It just simply doesn't exist. And even within that narrative of the settlement of beginning at the East Coast by Northern Europeans, the story of chattel slavery is erased. Like it's not really something that is accounted for or taken very seriously, because the narrative that is in place is one um, of God's provision for Northern Europeans and the justification of taking all of this sort of what was termed as virgin territory. And so I think that's what makes it so shocking to hear that there are Indigenous people that are still alive and are still faced with settler colonialism, which is exactly the settler colonialism that is being experienced in Palestine. That is
Yeah.
to say, you have a colonial society slapped over the top of another society that's denying the existence of the society that was already there. And so today we do have, and Tila is talking about the culture and the society of the people of the Shinnecock Hills that we now call the Hamptons, um, and remembering what that society was and continues to be, that it has continuously been this way for untold generations. And so the idea of the 7 generations, understanding that our behavior has to we have to account for 7 generations as we're making decisions. And that extends to the future, yes, and also the past, because we're accountable to the generations that went before us, that were actually the ones who were the stewards. Even that word I hate to use, but who were the people who were the who were making sure that those of us who are alive now would have a place to live and be in a society that is good and is capable of caring for us, that we're accountable to them as well as to the generations that are yet unborn. And so in the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery, in our vision and our sort of our organizing strategy, we are accounting for, you know, as a generation that's alive now, how do we support the generations that will come after us? Because we know that it's going to take, at least 100 years to accomplish the things that we hope for Indigenous peoples and self-determination. And how do we, the generation now, set up those generations that are coming to have what they need and the provision they need in order to carry on the work? And so to me, that's really what Tila is talking about too, is the ones who came before us remember reality. And I guess I would put it that way, that, we have settler colonialism now and also capitalism, but that's not really the forever story. Erasure makes it feel like that's the forever story, but it really isn't. It's pretty new and experimental and short term. And so Tela's the Shinnecock people's connection to the previous generations reminds them that there is a reality that extends, untold generations before what's going on now.
Yeah, I love what you just said about remembering reality, which in our book you define, as you learned it from Indigenous elders, that we live within a closed system of mutual dependence,
Mm,
and that closed system of mutual dependence is reality,
mm,
and that closed system of mutual dependence is what Tela Troge and the women with whom she works are trying to heal
mm.
and repair, so that it is actually available for now and the future. And again, she says it not just for her people, but because we all depend upon this system.
Mm. That's right.
So
Yeah, and Sherry, if you don't mind, I would just say one more thing about that, which is that when we embarked on this lecture series, we really interviewed 7 Indigenous leaders from across the world, and we asked them, what are the components of building a just society from your cosmology, this cosmology of your people. One of the things that came out of that was really a through line across all of these interviews was the mutual dependence, this understanding that everything that we do impacts every other living being, and that the actions of living beings impact us. And so this understanding that we're accountable and interdependent, mutually dependent. So if you have a chance, check it out. It's on our website. It's amazing to hear these Indigenous leaders from various countries and parts of the world, various walks of life, describe reality through the lens of their cosmology.
well, I think what I'd like to do, based on what you just said about this mutual dependence, is I want to play a clip in
Mm,
which Tila talks about the Kind Words program, which is just to say a little bit, so they're going out and basically trying to grow this form of kelp that can um, basically help restore the health of that bay. And
mm,
so they have to go out and harvest the source tissue, and then they have to take this tissue back to these lab, or like a lab that they've set up, and these tissues have to grow. I mean, basically they're starting kelp seedlings, and
mm,
those things have to grow, and then they basically introduce them back into the water. So she talks about how they do that, and it's just really quite amazing. This is going to be about not quite 4 minutes long. So I'm going to jump ahead.
Twine that is twined around these, and then we release the source tissue into those. It takes about 2 weeks, of a lot of praying and good wishes. We sing to the kelp in our Algonquin language. We read them poetry. We love to read them Joy Harjo. So it was really special to us. We actually were able to get a visit last year from Joy Harjo, so that was
Whoa.
really incredible. And we also run something that we call the Kind Words Program, where we invite our children to come say kind words to our kelp seedlings following this like very critical time post release. And after about 2 weeks, you're able to see visually what once was microscopic. You start to see the growth on the twine. And so then we continue to nurture them. We literally consider them to be our babies. So we control their environments, a nursery, very much a nursery. And we extend always kindness and love to them because we know what an important job
Mm,
that they have
mm,
as they are nurtured, we know that they're going to be going out into the bay, which is not a very hospitable environment currently. And so we try to give them as much love and strength as possible while they're in the nursery with us. And it's something that a lot of, because there are a couple of other people who are engaged in seaweed, but we have really been able to be kind of a shining star, and people wonder why. Because even, we have folks who have been using this methodology a little bit longer, and they have been having catastrophic failures. And so they're like, well, what's the difference? And I really am convinced that it's our Kind Words program. We also have the Sisters of St. Joseph Zoom in and also offer prayers and thoughts and strength to the kelp seedlings. But we really do notice that it makes a difference to offer the kelp seedlings this type of support. And a lot of people think it's silly. Actually, I was mocked. I went to a meeting of our Suffolk County legislature, and they diminished it completely there because we were applying for a municipal grant under the water quality program. And they were like, oh, what are you just chanting at them? What is the value in that? And I actually had to, say you could benefit a lot from learning what we're doing, because the discourse in the room was it was so inappropriate. And I was like, so I invited them to come to one of our kind words session, because, being kind to one another, it goes a long way. And that, the way that you speak to one another and the way that you think about plants and the importance of the job that we all have to do. Yes, there's a lot of work in maintaining this hatchery, but it's because of the hard work that the plants themselves are going to be doing that we see any type of benefit. So it's again about inviting those who are maybe not used to that into the process. In some people have revelations that it just hits them. It's like it's a very different way of doing things.
I thought that that was just an amazing clip, because if you want to have like a case study in um, in a kinship or relationship to plants, and to and being in a kinship relationship with plants, as opposed to seeing plants as relatives as opposed to a resource, or seeing this seaweed, this kelp, as a relative rather than a resource. I just thought it was just really beautiful, actually, to hear her talk about the way that they are in relationship with these kelp, with this seaweed, and the fact that they've actually had incredible success, um, uh, growing these babies, basically seaweed seedlings, um, versus other groups that aren't doing this, have this kind of relationship to the kelp. And anyways, I just thought that that was this was really beautiful and very provocative, in terms of, I think, for folks from the dominant culture to think about what it means to be in relationship.
Well, I love that. And, one of the things that really strikes me about the Kind Words program is that it also includes all the people in the community in the process of trying to remediate the environmental damage that's been done. So, elders are brought in to talk to the kelp. Community members are brought in to talk to the kelp. Busloads of school children are brought in to speak to the kelp and to understand the importance of the work that they're doing. And, in conversation with Tela that I've had over the years, I don't remember if this is in the interview. It may be. Um, they're really saying, we're sorry that we have to put you in this harsh environment. It's the harshest environment that
Yeah.
there is, and we're asking you to live and to do this difficult task so that our people can live, because we are putting you into hostile, difficult territory, and we're asking you to do this difficult job, and we thank you for being willing to do it. And I love that. To me, that is amazing, the commitment of of supporting and empowering these little plants, which feels completely ridiculous if you think that non-human life is inert. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're saying we know that non-human life is not inert. This is life, and we're in relationship with it, and we have to use intention to help that life to thrive, even in the most difficult conditions. And we're willing to do what we have to do to empower that life to thrive. That is very inspiring to me. And it reminds me of, I don't know, Sherry, I'll get off the subject here for a minute. Remind me to come back. It reminds me of, something that my own mentor from Table Women United has said to me again and again, is that when there is a winner and a loser, there is no winning for anyone, because actually that winning is it's just in a moment of time. If somebody is losing, then everyone is losing. That we are in a state of interdependence where your enemy is your brother. And I don't mean your brother is your enemy. I mean your enemy, whoever that is actually your relative and relation. And by harming them, you are harming the whole world. And the solution to confronting that harm is to blast loving kindness. That's all there is loving kindness. And so to me, the kind words program is such an illustration to that no matter what the critique is, or how the authorities, the legitimate authorities, may mock it, the people understand that this is what's required in order for everyone to thrive. And even those authorities who are mocking this program will benefit ultimately from the restoration of Shinnecock Bay. That they, even though they are, may feel, Tela didn't say this, is my words, even though they may feel like the enemy in this moment, they're actually relations who also have to be cared for. And the restoration of the Bay is restoration for everyone and all life.
So the last clip I'd like to play, this one's of just a couple minutes, really talks about, I don't know if it talks about this specifically in the clip, but one of the things I was struck by throughout this video is that Tila talks about how you just have to take action. And actually I mean, that seems so simple, right? But time and again, people are analyzing the situation and they're talking about the situation and they're like, you know, coming up with policy about the situation. And she's kind of like, no, we prioritize taking action. And I was very struck by some things she said, which are so similar to things you've said, Sarah.
Mm.
These women did not know how to grow sea kelp before they started doing it, but it's just
Mm.
like they consulted actually with some experts who told them is something they could do, and they're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going
Mm.
to start doing this thing that we don't even know how to do yet, and we're going to start doing it. And they also talked about how they've really partnered with the Sisters of St. Joseph, who actually they use some of, I think, the buildings on their on just like a retreat center, or I don't know what it is that they have there, to actually have the lab for the sea kelp. And she said the sisters with whom we work closely, they have a land ethic that is very similar to our own, but even more so, and this is what I like, even more so, they are willing to put that land ethic into action.
Mm.
And that means that they're actually going with them into the cold waters of Shinnecock Bay and are actually helping them with helping to grow this sea kelp. So, anyways, just taking action equals is so important, and I think it's a good word for people who might want to just, you know what I'm saying, Sarah. Um,
Analysis paralysis.
yeah, there we go. That's the word. Okay, so anyways, here's the clip.
Mm.
It's absolutely devastating, but it's not for a lack of resources. That's what's so mind-boggling.
Mm.
We're probably one of the richest counties in the United States, and there's absolutely no reason. We're definitely the richest town. Southampton is definitely the richest town, so there's not a lack of resources. There's just a lack of desire to take action. So
Mm.
by us with no resources saying, hey, look, we can work together, we'll all work together and we'll go out and we'll take action and we'll plant our seaweed, which, you know, it sequesters carbon and extracts nitrogen. And we can do it. And we could start to see in the areas that we're farming this replenishment of the marine life. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, there's no hope, there's no chance, there's no point in taking action. And so when people see us taking action with a little bit amount of resources, I think it really does push those with resources to try to come up with some type of solution, or again, just as a desire or a want to take action. That's what we believe is the most critical thing. You have to do something. We have to all do something. And if all of us are doing something, and again, you know, none of us are scientists. We don't, you know, have degrees in, you know, anything relating to marine biology or anything, and yet we're still able to overcome that and take action. It's really the key. So we think that if others are invited in and follow our example, there will be kind of this restoration of, I don't know, optimism into the fact that we can reverse, we can restore, and we can regenerate what has been and what we know, because we have the longer memory. We have the longer memory, so we know what is possible, what is real, what can be again. So we can take action to restore and regenerate that way.
I was thinking to myself that I'm just going to take that clip, and every time I talk to somebody who's talking about just how they're despairing and don't have hope, I'll just send that clip to them.
Oh, right.
Because I talk to those people all the time, and I know you do too. And it's like, okay, here's a good word for you.
Yeah, and this is something I just maybe complexify this idea too, that Tela, I don't remember if it's in this interview or not, but certainly in our conversation, has shared with me the commitment of the collaborative to not use plastic, because they know that plastic is devastating to the environment. And so they said, well, we can't use plastic. We have to figure out another way. Even in their lab where they're growing the starts, you know, these baby plants that they're going to put back into the Shinnecock Bay, they have made a commitment to not use plastic. And once again, they don't maybe understand all the ways in which plastic is damaging, but they don't know that it's not damaging. So they've made a commitment not to use it because they don't want microplastics in Shinnecock Bay, not just for the Shinnecock people, but for all life. And to me, what a commitment that is. I'm just amazed by that. And so often what I hear in the discourse, you know, in this country is, well, we have to make this shortcut in order to save the day. You know, like we have to extract these resources. We have to extract lithium on Indigenous land. We have to extract copper on Indigenous land. We have to put in this pipeline in order to save the day. You know, so a few eggs will be broken. And we're willing to live with the consequences of that. And here is this women's collaborative that don't have they have very little resources. They don't have a lot of expertise, and they are saying we are committed to not further damaging and polluting this environment. And I'm just so impressed by that. I just find that to be inspiring.
Absolutely. There is so much more in this interview. It's actually also, there's some questions and answers that happen at the end. I really just encourage you so strongly to go listen to the entire interview, and then also find out more about the struggle of the Shinnecock. We actually have a working group in the coalition who are coming alongside the Shinnecock in their desire for self-determination and also water protection. So I think that working group is still open to receiving new members. Is that true, Sarah?
I would say that's true, and the way to access that working group, if you are inspired and interested, and you're willing to take action. And I want to say again, you don't have to have a degree in marine biology. You don't have to have a degree in public policy. All you have to have is a will and a conviction to be part of this movement. On our website, we have our monthly calendar of events. Go to the orientation, which is on a Thursday. One Thursday a month, we have new volunteer orientation. If you go to that orientation, or if you go to our coffee hour, which we also hold once a year on a Wednesday, one Wednesday a month, then you can say, I want to be involved in the Shinnecock Working Group, and we will connect you with the organizers that are working side by side with the Shinnecock. And if you don't have the energy to do that, then I would encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. You can always pray with us for our campaigns. And we do have an active campaign with the Shinnecock, and you can pray with us. And we even have prayers for you to share with your community or in your own life. We would love for you to join us in all the dimensions that you can with your life energy and with your spiritual life, if you're willing. We would so welcome your participation.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sherry. So good to be with you today.
Yeah.
This podcast is hosted by us, co-produced by the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery and Anabaptist World.
The opinions expressed here are ours, however, and do not reflect official positions of Anabaptist World.
For more information, go to anabaptistworld.org and dismantlediscovery.org.
Our theme music is by Micah Peplow and Shannon Kaler. Thank you.